So I found some footage of the first two HO scale model railroads that I built to near completion from our old house before we moved a couple years ago. I learned a ton while building these, good and bad, and I thought that I'd share them with you today in this video. This layout here is from about 2014. Easy Track is what I use, so that should tell you something. But we'll talk about these coming up. Okay, guys, so let's get into it. I grew up having train sets. I got them for Christmas every year, for birthdays, but this was my first real endeavor into building a true model railroad. So this layout is a U-shaped layout with two levels, and they're both dog bone style track plans. I just wanted to run really long trains, get as much of my rolling stock on the tracks as I could, run the trains in opposite direction, and just be able to sit there and listen to the clickety clack of the trains running. This was my first endeavor into DCC. I got a couple of Bachmann DCC locomotives, and I was off to the races. So I want to share with you a few things that I learned while building this railroad that I took into the next railroad. First and foremost is Bachmann Easy Track is for toy trains. It is not for anybody that's remotely serious about model railroading. So I've changed that moving forward. Another lesson that I learned was that I do not have the artistic capability to paint a backdrop. So I quit doing that after this layout, and I went to taking photos and scaling them and printing them out and then piecing it together. And that's worked out really well for me moving forward. So the third and last negative thing that I learned from this layout is have a plan. Do you want to go modern era diesel? Do you want to go old school steam? You can see in these two photos that I just put everything that I had bought and just wanted to get it out on the layout to show it off. I was so proud of my stuff. There was no rhyme or reason to the way I did it. So a few good things I learned from building this layout. One would be the rock mold castings. I started off with a Woodland Scenics rock mold that I purchased. Then I purchased another one. Then I actually started making my own rock mold. So I'm real pleased with how that turned out on this layout and the painting techniques that I used to paint them up. So the second positive takeaway from this layout was I learned how to build these pine trees using the furnace filter method. They've turned out really cool and they're super durable. And all of these trees are on my current layout that you can see on some of my other videos on our page. The third and final positive we'll take away from this layout is the importance of a fascia and how it just frames your modeling. It makes everything look so nice. I thought green was the way to go on this. It's not. In my opinion, black is the best way to go with your fascia. It makes your modeling look like a museum piece and it just frames it perfectly. So in 2018, I decided to tear out the railroad that we just viewed to build back better with a point-to-point railroad along the walls with the peninsula to cram as much operating opportunities into this one as I could. So the first couple things you'll notice right off is I painted the backdrop a solid blue and I used a layer of 2-inch rigid foam insulation board as the base for this railroad because it presents better opportunities for landscaping. Here you can see the very first stages of my photo backdrop work that I started. You'll see it more finished towards the end of this video, but it really turned out killer. And the downside is you still see a little bit of that Bachmann Easy Track. I swear I didn't use any of that on my latest layout, I promise. So here you can see I'm using regular Atlas track, and you can see that photo backdrop coming together, just kind of mocking things up to get a feel for how the scene's going to look here. You can also see those pine trees I made using the furnace filter technique on this layout. They were super easy to just reuse and they still look great. Here's a couple more drawbacks. This is that easy track again. I swear I quit using that. But you can see that I've just got so much track in such a small space. It's just overkill and it reeks of toy train, not model railroad. So here you can see the yard areas coming together, and in the background you see that photo backdrop that I took the pictures of and printed out and pieced together. It really looks awesome. The pine trees that were made with the furnace filter really blend in really well. Here's another section of the backdrop. it turned out great, and that's what I used on my latest layout as well. Here's some more of that backdrop. So here's the yard area at the other end of the layout without the backdrop, and then you're going to see with the backdrop, and what a difference adding that backdrop makes. So very pleased with that technique that I learned how to do and kind of got pretty good at. So the next two or three photos, you can see where I started to use that insulation foam board to really start to build the terrain. And then there's a spot where I cut some out and put some bridges in, but you can see that start to come together. So I really like that technique. These next couple of photos kind of show about as far as this layout got before we ended up selling our house and moving. But I hope you notice the fascia, how it finishes everything off, but it kind of blends away to where you don't really notice it. And I love the black fascia. I use that on my latest layout. It just looks so clean and museum quality. It makes my modeling look better. And these last two photos show a lot of the 1/4 inch foam core building flats that I started building. This is where I learned this technique as well, and I really like it, and I use it a lot in my latest railroad. So in the spring of 2019, we bought our new house, and I built a couple of Fremo modules, thinking that that'd be the way to go, and it just wasn't for me. It didn't work for me. And during the pandemic is when I started to build the BNSF Stampede Pass and Eastern Washington Subdivision Railroad that you can check out on some of my other videos. But anyways, guys, thanks for coming along on this journey where I got to share some of my first layouts that I built and some of the things that worked for me and didn't work for me. If you're new to the hobby, hopefully that helps you out. But remember, there's always room to grow in this hobby, and you can always change your mind anytime you want to. Thanks for watching, and happy railroading.